So I feel like lo-fi in general is moving into a more sleepy, laid-back vibe compared to the jazzy hip-hop style that it was a couple of years ago. And you guys seem to like it whenever I do one of these videos about making sleepy lo-fi. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to jump into this project and take a look at this sleepy lo-fi track that I've made this week. So I'm just going to jump straight into this one, and I initially started this with a piano chord progression. I recently picked up the Labs Originals Cinematic Soft Piano, and it's instantly become my favourite piano VST. It's not too expensive, it's something about £30, and you get some really amazing piano sounds. And I found this chord progression that I thought sounded really nice. And so that's how the track initially started. I then developed it a little bit further, as you'll see here. I actually moved that F major chord into an F diminished or F suspended. I'm not quite sure. Kept the E and the D chords the same and just introduced some higher notes. So the actual piano chord progression sounds like this. And then at the end, I just introduced a little passing chord between the final chord and that first chord again. Chords have a really nice kind of emotional feel to them, and it's exactly what I was going for. Once I had those, I knew I was working in an F major, so I just introduced then drone, and this is playing the F and the C, the 1 and the 5 of the scale. Just to give it that nice ambience in the background. I just got an EQ on that drone, rolling off everything from about, I don't know, 500-600 hertz. I didn't want it to be too high in the register. I just wanted like a nice kind of warm frequency. And on the piano, just got an EQ rolling off everything from around the same range. So really hitting those low, mid, warm frequencies, just going for something super warm. After I'd written that, I kind of found this little piano melody. And on this piano, we've got a Solaris reverb plugin, like a medium reverb with about 30% wet signal coming through, just to give it that kind of nice shimmer at the top. Then I put a ping pong delay on, echo ever so slightly what's coming through, but I turned that wet down to about 40%. So see if I turn the wet signal up too much, it just all gets a little bit too muddy too quickly. But I turn it down to about 43%. It's there in the background, it kind of almost adds this rhythmic element to the piano. And that is all of the elements that I used to create the intro to this track. And then I wanted to start building in some more layers. So I started really simply just by adding a bass. And this is just following the root notes of those chords. So we've got the F, the E, and the D following the chords exactly. And this is using the Labs Opia sub bass. I've just got an EQ rolling off anything above sort of 200 hertz, just to give it that really nice warm subby frequency. Really fills in that lower register. The track at this point is really lacking anything above 500-600 hertz, so I thought it was time to introduce a bit of ambience, a bit of movement, something in a higher register. So I introduced this lap steel sound. This is a slow tremolo from Labs, always using Labs, one of the best free plugins out there, and just came up with this sort of almost vocal harmony melody. giving it that ambient vibe. And on this one, all I've got is an EQ. See, I'm really using EQ here to focus each instrument in on its range in the mix. So I've got obviously my pianos, my drones, my basses in that low, mid. I've then got this where I'm just focusing in on kind of those middle frequencies just to kind of start spreading the track out, because I know that at the end of this track I'm going to be introducing a guitar where it's going to be filling in kind of this second half of the range of the track. Thinking about in your mix, where's everything sitting? And I try and think about that as I'm writing, not after the fact when I'm mixing. Starting to really build that kind of emotion and that ambience that you get from the sleepy ambient stuff. I then wanted to introduce some drums, so I just got a really simple kick, snare and hat pattern. We'll start with the hat. That's just playing on every single 4 bars. And what's interesting about the hat and what I did in this track is I actually added a delay to it, and it's got a ping pong effect and it's hitting almost immediately. So while the hat itself is hitting, constantly echoing in the different headphones that you're wearing. It sounds like the hi-hat has kind of got this rhythmic pattern that's continuous, but it's just hitting on those downstrokes. So here's how the hat sounds without the delay, and then with the delay. Different texture to if I'd have added those hat sounds in manually. Added this really simple snare pattern. And you'll hear there, I actually did a similar thing with the snare. Added a delay, a little bit of a longer delay this time, but a similar thing. It's bouncing between the headphones. I think it's a really interesting technique with drums because it's not something you hear too often. But what it does is it means that your main core drum elements give you a ton of space in the mix, and then those delays are kind of filling in those pockets for you, which I just think is a really nice way to add texture to your track without trying to overcomplicate things. If there was snares hitting all the time, it would be way too much, but using the delay just adds like a nice bit of texture. And then kick pattern with tons of space between kicks. With everything else that we've got happening, here is how it sounds. Just a really nice foundation for the rest of the track. Now I wanted to build in some guitar layers, so it started with this, just a really simple guitar art. And then I introduced a second guitar up in a higher octave. And I used those to really add to the foundation of the track. Take a listen to how they sound when they come in. I don't know if you'll be able to notice this if you don't have headphones on, but I've got one pan to the left, one pan to the right, just to give you a really wide signal from those guitars. On my guitars, I'm just using Guitar Rig 7 with the Clean Cave preset that I've tweaked ever so slightly, and then I've got an equalizer rolling off those lows, filling in those higher registers in the track. On the high one, I've got a compressor that's just catching those peaks. Just picking up on the very peaks there, not picking up on a lot at all. And then I've got Ozone Imager, just adding a bit of stereo and a bit of width to the sound. I then felt like this track could really do with some of those nice sleepy guitar slides that you might hear in like a Purple Cat track or something like that. So I gave a go at laying in some of my own. 2 tracks here because I messed up the first one, but the rest of the take was pretty good. And then with the rest of the sounds, I got the same setup on those guitar slides, except I've got a Valhalla Supermassive, adding a load of reverb, a load of feedback, a load of density, just to give it a nice like washed out sound. And then I've got an ozone imager on full stereo, full width, making it a really nice kind of wide, luscious sound. And to be honest, that's where I left the track. I thought I was completely finished with it, and I just had this really nice kind of sleepy ambient guitar slide track. I did step away for a couple of days. I came back to it, I think yesterday. Just felt like I wanted to add a little more to it. I wanted to add a B section, a second section of guitar to really kind of flesh this out into more than just a loop. Really loved the way it was sounding, and I wanted to see if I could take it further. So I jumped in and I recorded a couple more guitar parts. First guitar part that I recorded was matching the piano chords, but in a higher register and just on the guitar. Sounds like this. Just using that as a layer to differentiate this B section from the A section. You know, this isn't something that's really jumping out at you too much. Let's see if you can hear it while I play this section for you. Well, now that I play it without the top line, it's pretty obvious. I also added a top line guitar melody that I actually think moves the track into a whole new space and brings it up to another level. The guitar on its own just sounds like this. So we're still sticking to the root of this track, which is tons of space, and also kind of following on from the previous section by still including some guitar slides, so it doesn't feel like we've moved onto a completely different track. We haven't moved the vibe too much. We're kind of using this as a follow-up or a part 2 to the original section. What I also did, just to really instigate that we're moving into a second section of the track, was I cut out everything that wasn't guitar at this section. So we've got no piano, we've got none of those foundation, the background guitars, and no drums. Just for a little like 1 bar section where we've just got our 2 new guitars playing, and then I did keep in the Labs ambience. Everything cuts out after this last kind of 2 bars here, and then you get this nice kind of break before everything comes back in. I'll just play that for you now. And then we just break it right back down for a little outro bar here. When I tell you I am so happy with how this came out, I think it's got such a vibe. I actually might keep working on this and flesh it out into a complete track. I mean, at the moment, it's 1.5 minutes long. I'd like to get it to around that 2 minute mark at least. So maybe another 4 bars, 8 bars. And I think we'll be there, but it's sounding so nice. And a little tip here for if you are recording live instruments into FL Studio or into your DAW is always make sure to go in and just add a very small crossfade onto every single one. And what that's going to do is just stop any clicks or any pops when that recording started. You see, I've done that on all of them. Some of them are so small that you can't even see that normally. And that's just going to mean you don't have any clicks or pops when that track comes in, because sometimes you can end up with that like live click. I'm super happy with how this track came out, and I really hope you guys have liked watching this video. I know you guys generally do like it when I put out these sleepy breakdowns. Anyways, if you made it this far, drop a comment. If you've got any ideas or videos you want to see on this channel, do pop them in the comments. I always open a question up on my community. Try to do it every month or so to hear what you guys want to see in the videos. I think that's pretty much it for this one. Peace out.